what happens is this, is then people start saying, hey, I wonder if this movement, it's been to Tunisia, it's been to Egypt, and then the country in between, Libya, it's been there. People are marching over in Syria, and there's problems in Kuwait, and there's some in Yemen, and some people are talking about making trouble in even Iran, Saudi Arabia. And so now people start saying, I wonder if there's going to be a cutoff of one of these big oil producers next. Because this looks like a movement. It doesn't look like, oh, there was a problem in Tunisia, and that's the end of the story.
Right.
It looks like, wow, this is spreading. And each success sort of gives encouragement to others. And so now the people who own oil are saying,
Speculation.
you know, I never know for sure what's going to happen, but it seems like if I put everything on a scale, it seems like right now there's some possibility of political turmoil in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain and some of these other countries. I think I'm just going to hold back a little of my production just in case. If everything blows up, I don't know if you've heard this, but the estimates are if Saudi Arabia has this kind of political problem the way Libya does, for example, and by the way, I think most people, the smart money says they won't. But if they do, the talk is that the price of crude oil will go any place from $200 to $300 a barrel. It's now a little bit over 100. Okay, so anyway, if you own that oil, let's say you're living in Texas and you got a big, you know, bunch of those crickets out there pumping that oil out of the ground for you, you might just go, you know, I think we'll slow down just a little bit. And if we slow down just a little bit, we'll have a little bit more in case the price of oil goes to $300 a barrel. Now, I'll keep on, you know, I've got contracts with people, and I'll fulfill those contracts, but I'm not going to get in a big rush to overproduce and see if I can sell more. I think I'll go a little slower. And so it's speculation, and it's a speculation on some negative thing happening. Before the speculation, when it was Egypt, it wasn't so much about Egypt because they weren't big producers of oil, but the Suez Canal goes by Egypt, and the issue was, hey, maybe the Suez Canal will get closed as a result of all this political turmoil, and if it gets closed, then it will take a lot longer for oil to reach us from the Middle East, and that is effectively going to reduce the supply of oil for a while, as all those ships go all the way around Africa rather than, you know, up through the Red Sea. And so, you know, then it was a fear of that. So each time it's a fear of different things. It's Libya, there's a cutoff of oil. Egypt, there's a potential cutoff of, or, you know, a stoppage of the Suez Canal shipments. And with Saudi Arabia and some of these other countries, the fear is that there be a huge quantity of, or a huge reduction in the quantity of oil produced. So different stories, different places.
We already talked about our own oil reserves, so why wouldn't it, in trying to become more self-sufficient as a country, why wouldn't it make sense to rely on our own oil reserves? They're not as pure, like you said, as in Libya. They require more refinery or refining.
Well, that's a little bit of it, but the reason we don't, you know, when you start saying why do we or why don't we do something, that's a policy. Those policies get made in Washington, D.C. mainly. And so now you're not asking an economic question, you're asking a political question. And so why don't we? I don't know. There are, you know, the Obama administration is not real big on production of oil and using hydrocarbons and things like that. There's a big push in the other direction. And so the Obama administration's really not behind, philosophically, just not behind us producing more oil. We have a slowdown in the Gulf right now. There is, I believe, just a flat no, we're not going to explore some of these areas up in Alaska, at least currently. There are vast quantities of oil up in North Dakota and Montana, you know, about the Bakken shale up there. So there are vast quantities there. That's not being developed. And so that's just not what this administration is promoting. And for better or worse, and you know, life is a series of trade-offs, and so there, people can give good reasons for not developing those things, but you know, it causes the price of oil to be higher, and it causes it to be more expensive for us to drive. I think longer run, the case for us producing more oil, and I mean a lot more oil, is very compelling. There's a lot of oil there. We're not about to run out. That oil is something we can, we found it and we know how to get it out of the ground and we know how to process it and so forth. And so I think longer term, when we're not thinking about who's the president, but just in the future, the next 5, 10, 15 years, I don't think there's any way that we just sit on all that oil and not produce it. And by the way, I'd say the same thing about natural gas. There are vast quantities of natural gas that in these shale oil fields that have been discovered. And so I think longer term, there's no question about that being developed. But this year, next year, I don't know.
What about American companies like MurphyUSA? Should their costs be lower?
And why would that be? The price of oil is the
Since
same
they're in
everywhere.
Okay.
So, I don't know. A lot of times the advantage of being an American company, it's like Murphy Oil or any company that's here in the United States. If you're using some product, like an oil product, that has been, of course, refined. But anyway, if you're using oil products that are trading in the world market, and there's one price, then being an American company doesn't give you a big advantage, except it may give you an advantage if you're an American company and now you are real close to your market and you know what's going on in the market and the trends and where demand is going and so forth, and you've got a better feel for that than somebody overseas, then that would be a true advantage. Because in our economy, the one who wins the race, for profits, is the one who does a better job of satisfying their customers. And so if you can figure out what's going on with your customers better than somebody in another country, or maybe somebody up at the top of some big tall tower in Chicago or New York, then you can prosper in our economy.
Well, I have just a couple more questions. I've heard that gas stations don't make a lot of money off of fuel sales. They make most of their money off concessions. So where do our dollars go when we fill our tanks?
Well, most of your dollar goes for the oil. And so it goes from the gas station back to whoever they pay, they're a wholesaler, and then it goes from there back to the company that refined it. Okay. And and some of these companies are, they refine it, but they own it in the ground. Some of the refiners are buying the crude oil. So, you just keep working your way back. But for the most part, it's going back to those earlier stages, such as the person that owns the oil, person or country or company or whatever that owns the oil. That's a lot of it, and then the refining of it. The wholesale price of gasoline is going to be, I'll throw a number out here, but 50, 60 cents a gallon less than the price we pay at the pump. And so if it's 50 cents, so maybe we pay, or maybe the wholesale price of gasoline would be $3.10. And this would be that everybody in the country, everybody in the world can buy it at that price, at the wholesale level. Anyway, $3.10, and then maybe it sells for $3.50, $3.60 at the pump. Okay. And so then that 50 or 60 cents is for a variety of things. Some of it's transportation, and some of it's for the rent on the gas station and things like that. And some of it's for the labor services, the person that's inside running the business and so forth, or all those other little items. For the most part, though, when we pay $3.50 for gasoline, most of that money goes for the gasoline that has nothing to do with the gas station themselves.
Okay. Do you have a prediction of what you think gas prices will be by the summer?
By this summer, I think the price of gasoline this summer will be a little bit lower than it is now, but not much. The price of gasoline tends to go up in the summer. People are traveling. And so I think if we didn't have this political turmoil, that's where it would go. I think that some of the political turmoil will go away over the next couple months. And so maybe that will allow the price of gasoline to go down a little bit. That's very near term. A year from now, I think the price of oil and gas will be lower than it is today.
Really?
Yes, I do, because I think, and I mean, I don't know, this is a guess, but I think a year from now that this political turmoil in the Middle East will have largely passed by then. The real fear is that Saudi Arabia gets caught up in one of these, and I think the smart money says that, and that's not my money, by the way, that's just who I listen to, but I think that the smart money says that most of the doubts, the questions about Saudi Arabia's stability say that there are sort of outsiders coming in and trying to excite turmoil there, and revolution, that the people who are Saudis themselves, and that doesn't mean it's perfect, but they're not ready to have a revolution and overthrow, the whole system and that sort of thing. So that is something, and I don't know, they say that Iran is behind some of that. I don't know if that's true, But I believe that over the next year, Saudi Arabia will be on top of that issue. And so then I don't think there will be people talking a year from now about, oh boy, they're gonna, like have a revolution in Saudi Arabia. And as that fear goes away, I think these people that have been holding back on their supplies will sell that oil and they'll bring the price down. 10 years, 20 years from now, I think the price of oil and gas will be lower than it is today.
That'd be awesome.
I want to give you a little something for, your story here. But I truly think that there's plenty of oil out there in the world, and it's going to be coming to market. And when I say, 10 years, 20 years from now, that's plenty of time for us to get through several presidential terms and, all sorts of, have a national conversation on what do we want to do here. They say, and I don't know if this is true, but I think it's probably true, they say that we could convert these semi-trucks to natural gas, liquefied natural gas, and reduce our consumption of oil by 1/3. And so, and that's not just here in the United States, that's around the world. And so if you could reduce consumption of oil due to pushing all these big trucks around, or driving those, then that would go a long ways toward reducing the demand for oil and gasoline prices. So there's a lot going on. The thing that's caused this to happen, it didn't just fall from the sky and go, oh, isn't this great? But you've got a lot of different issues going on here that I'm talking about. It's like finding this oil up here in the shale fields and then recovering it and things like that, and converting semis to natural gas. These things don't just happen, they happen because we've had a high price for oil in the last few years. And then people start going, wow, oil prices are so high, I can get rich. And so if the price of oil had always been at like $30 a barrel, then we wouldn't have found, or I think they knew that the shale was there, but they wouldn't have found out how to, do the horizontal drilling and the fracking and all that stuff that is required to get that oil out of the ground. And so the high price of oil brings it on. And so that's what we normally see, is that if the price of oil goes up and then back down, and so it's just up for a short period and then back down, it's just kind of mildly disrupting. But if the price of oil goes up, and it stays up for years, and it has been high for years now, not at a peak, but I mean it is, wow, sort of a base level for oil today, if sort of some equilibrium, would be about $70. And that is a lot higher than it was 20 years ago or anything like that. If the price of oil goes up and it stays up, then there are major adjustments that take place both on the supply side and the demand side. On the demand side, we start looking for cars that are more fuel efficient, we start living closer to work, and we start carpooling, and we start changing our lives, and maybe we don't take as many summer vacations by car, we fly more often. So over the long run, if the price of gasoline and oil goes up, it changes the demand in a meaningful way. And then in the long run, if the price of oil goes up, it changes the supply in a meaningful way, because we start getting all sorts of new technologies and looking, at the ocean and every place else for this stuff. And there are vast new quantities of oil that comes to the market. And so I'm telling you, or I'm saying that the price of oil has been fairly high for quite a while, and we're seeing the fruits of that coming to the market. And right now with this turmoil, political turmoil in the Middle East, it's not obvious, but longer term it will be very obvious. And I think that if we just say, 20 years from now, will the price of oil be higher or lower than it is today? If you just get like the price of oil today compared to the CPI, and then you watch them both over time, I'm saying that over the next 20 years, the CPI will go up, the Consumer Price Index, prices in general will go up more than the price of oil. That's what I expect. And so I would expect that basically in real terms, inflation adjusted terms, the cost of operating that car will go down. And so I don't think in 20 years or 30 years we're all going to be driving hybrids. I think we're going to be driving cars with internal combustion engines that are burning probably gasoline, maybe some liquefied natural gas. But, so, it's not going to end up with, wouldn't it be wonderful if we all had hydrogen operated cars? That might be nice, but that's a fairy tale right now. And it will be throughout the end of your life, I believe.
Great.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay.